Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m., and that is going to be out there Eastern time. We appreciate you watching us every day, again, beginning at 2 p.m., and you can watch us many ways. You can find us on all the social media sites. That's Facebook, YouTube. If it's social media, we're in it. Me, we, the whole works. But we appreciate you doing that. Continue sending emails, by the way. I love your emails. It makes my day. And sometimes I'll have like a little nook where I sit and I get on my computer and I look at your emails. And it just really makes my evening. You know, with that, it's cold outside. So I've got either my hot chocolate or my coffee in my hand. And I'm reading your emails. Continue doing that, please. Donna at donnasedge.com. That's Donna at donnasedge.com. Appreciate you listening to us. You can find us on television syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget that podcast, thenewscasters.com. And again, all the social media sites. Let's go ahead and get started because I have this wonderful guest. He and I have turned into really good friends. Mark Sowersby, and you're a pastor, and you're an author, and you're a speaker. What else do? You do lots of stuff.
Husband, a father, a friend, I guess a regular Joe. I do whatever I need to do, like most of us.
Well, what I do is when I run in, because we're moving, we're in the process of doing that, we're going back to the Carolinas. And so there's a couple of things I'm like, well, I just got to tell Mark about this. I had something I thought was going to be a disruption, and we were supposed to be moving this week. Well, guess what? We've got frigid, cold weather. Would have been tough to move this week, and it all is just working out. Next week, we're supposed to be somewhat milder. So thanks for what you said about that. I appreciate it.
Sure. No, hey, listen, I live in the cold weather. You know, I'm way up here on the Northeast, and most of my winters have been covered in snow. And I learned how to shovel when I was real young, use a snow blower. I can't have many memories that I have without using those. So I know what cold weather's like. So I know that you guys down south are getting, or y'all down south are getting some snow and ice and rain. And my heart goes out to you because I know I don't like it. So I'm sure you don't like it. So, you know, the weather gets in the way sometimes, but it's a part of life. And I hear you're going to get up to 50s next week, which you call mild, but I call a spring day, 50 degrees. I might even go swimming at 50 degrees. So it's funny how weather kind of dictates how we live and where we're at. It's cold today. Yeah, it's cold today.
It's going to feel like a tropical heat wave. We are just going to, we're going to just look, and it's going to be a pleasure to move that way. You know, it won't be too hot, but we have to go through seasons. We have to go through changes. But before we get started, let's guide folks and tell folks where they can find your writings.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to find out more about my books, I have just released a brand new book until this past Tuesday on the 14th of January, released a brand new book called Letters to the Weary. So not only my first book, which is called Forgiving the Nightmare, but now a brand new book. It's a devotional. I wrote it with my wife. I wrote it with my pastor hat on, and I just want to share the goodness and grace of love of God with people, encourage them. And we call it Letter to the Weary. So where you can find me first, at my website at forgivingthenightmare.com, forgivingthenightmare.com. And next, you can find me on Amazon. Both my books are available on Amazon. Just put in Letters to the Weary or Forgive the Nightmare. But that's the best way to connect with me. And like you, I'm on all the social media, especially the ones my kids tell me to go on. That's
listen to them.
That's right. That's right.
And listen to the child, because sometimes the child can lead us.
That's right. That's right.
I know mine has. Let's talk a little bit about, because I know that both of us have had a spin on life, and it was tough. I mean, it really was for both of us. You went through some things I didn't go through, and I'm sure there were times you thought, well, is this ever going to end? Let's talk about the process of going from the real tragic things we have to deal with in life until we actually kind of get over that hump.
And I really like what you said there, Donna. I like how you used the word process, because that's what it is. You know, whatever our tragedy is, our trial, I call it a nightmare in my book, whatever that situation is, abuse, sorrow, pain, rejection, death, addiction, whatever that is, it is a process. Now, I think many of us would wish that we'd go to bed at night and wake up the next morning and it'd all be fixed. You know, we wish there was a magic pill we could take, or we could just, but that's not what it is. It's a process. And for me, that process starts in faith. That process starts calling out the name of God. That process starts me seeking ye first the kingdom of God, and all this shall be added. So, you know, the end of my story is I learned to forgive those who trespass against me. But that's not where it started. My health did not come from me saying I seek forgiveness. My health came from me seeking the Lord, and the Lord would bring me to forgiveness. So, yeah, it's a journey full of ups and downs, lefts and rights, tears and cheers. But it's that dying to self and having that perspective that brings us whole and health. And again, it's beautiful and it's ugly. It's scary and it's peaceful. It's hard and it's graceful. So it's that journey. And I tried to shed some light on that journey in my book, Forgive the Nightmare, and now in our new devotional called Letters to the Weary.
I have a family member who holds on to resentment and just won't let it go. And she overeats. So she's she's gained a lot of weight and has been for most of her life. But there's this hate in her heart. And now she's talking about how, her health is not good. She's pretty close to 60 years old. And that's a killer when you hold on to hate, I think. What can she do?
Well, first of all, my heart breaks. Unfortunately, I've wrestled with some of the same things. My weight has always been up and down my whole life. And when I'm in the little bit in the valley, when I'm dealing with blues, when I'm having a tough time, it's easy for me to reach for the cheesecake. It's easy for me because, food never rejects me. Food always accepts me, but I always turn to it at the wrong time, and food always lies to me. Oh, it leaves me with health issues. So, but I can understand the comfort somebody finds in any kind of our vices. We find comfort in, and that's why there are vices. But we really have to deal with the core of that issue, the seed, the root of that issue. And oftentimes it's a pain or a rejection or a fear. I don't know your friend's story, but my heart hurts for her when I hear that she's trapped with this unforgiveness, with this pain around her. And the only thing I could say is that the only place for me where I learned to let that go was first getting a hold of God. God had to become bigger than my pain. My faith had to become stronger than my hurt. God's grace became deeper than my sorrow. And in that journey was me dying to myself every day and picking up my cross. And again, it's not easy. If it was an ABC 1, 2, 3, I'd write the book, But what I want to say is that trauma lies to us. Mm-hmm. Trauma leaves us feeling isolated. Trauma says you're the only one that this ever happened to. Trauma lies and says you're the only one that's ever gone through this. If people find out, what will they say? What will they think? But I'll tell you that that's a lie from the pit of hell. There are so many people out there that have dealt with hurts and pains, shames and sorrows. The community of people out there that want to come beside and help and support is huge. It's not full of perfect people. Believe me, there's none perfect but Jesus. But it's full of people who will care and say, this is what I did, and this is how I found hope, and this is where I learned to pray, and this is where I learned to surrender. So I would say to your friend, first of all, I just want her to know God loves her. God loves her. And as much pain as she carries, I would pray that the love of God could pierce all that hurt. And in that place of love is where healing begins.
Well, we were both raised in the same household. And so we both took different paths. Mm-hmm. She resents the path I took. I just want a better world. I believe in forgiving. I believe in now. Do I want to bite people on top of the head sometimes? Yes, I do. I'm just a human being, but I choose not to do that. And I choose to. I talk with my husband about situations sometimes, and he's a huge help. And I just choose not to hold the resentment from our parents. I choose not to. Well, she does, and she pretty much divorced us all a few years ago. And even though she lives just right down the road, but I feel that I have to take care of my mother, and I can't just let that go. But no, her idea is a total idea of that, but it's the resentment that she holds. She has this hate-filled heart. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I wanted to ask this question because her health is not good, and she's way younger than I am. So do people, and I know you're not a medical doctor, but from your life, and I see it, people who hold resentment and hate and they won't forgive and they just hold on to it. It seems like they have worse health than people who just move on.
as you said, I'm no doctor. I can only use what I've seen in life like you. And I would say, yes, I think that anxiety, fears, pain causes stress. And stress, we're always trying to find that relief from. And again, running to vices that to try to find relief, or the stress of the moment, not sleeping well and always waiting for the other foot to drop, always waiting for the bad to come. It's kind of, you're living in a state of just readiness, I guess, a state that we never allow ourselves to rest. And that's why I wrote the book. I call our devotion Letters to the Weary, because Jesus said that if you're wearied and tired, come to him and he will give you rest. And when we're weary of the battle, when we're weary of the fight, when we're weary of the situation, as you said, you and your sister grew up in the same home and had the same parents and had the same situations that happened in one went one way how to deal with it, and one went another way how to deal with it. I grew up in a home with other siblings, and I understand exactly that same plight. Now, I was the main target of my abuser. I was the one that he molested and beaten and hurt. But yet that dysfunction and that pain affected all of us. And I saw my siblings taking different paths to how to deal with it. Some ran to ways that I didn't run, and some ran away, some came home, some stayed close. But that's what kind of trauma does. We're always trying to escape. We're always trying to leave. We're always trying to say, help me, figure it out. And then we build these walls up. We build these protections. We build these systems that say, God, I can't let this down, or I'm not going to let this go. And that's why the perspective has to change from the hurt to Jesus. And in saying that, it's a journey to do that. But as our perspective changes to really understand what Jesus tells us to forgive, as to forgive one another, as it tells us in the gospel, it tells us, help us to forgive those who trespass against us. And we have to realize that scripture doesn't just mean the easy stuff. The guy who cut me off on the highway, or the guy who owes me $2. We have to forgive everyone because Christ told us to forgive. And that's where the journey, what is forgiveness? How do we do it? What's it look like? And what's it have in it? And I think when I learned that, I was able to say, when I learned that definition for me, and I brought it to the Lord, I said, I can forgive that way. I used to think that forgiveness meant I was letting the person off the hook. I was saying it was okay. I was saying, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. I learned that forgiveness is not approval. Forgiveness is not approving the act or the action.
I had to learn that.
Yeah, that's not what forgiveness is. You can forgive and still say what happened is wrong and evil and bad. That's the first thing I learned about forgiveness, that forgiveness is not approval, but we can still give it. The second thing I learned is that forgiveness is not a one-time event. As a young man, I forgave at 20, and then I forgave at 40. And as I get closer to 60, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting up there. I'm sure I'll forgive and fresh it. And it's those moments, day by day, precept by precept, inch by inch, your mercies are made new every morning. And the last thing I realized is I can have my boundaries. Sometimes you just had to have safe boundaries. And that doesn't mean you never see the person, but you have to kind of know when to have those boundaries. That's distance, or if that's, you just have to have those boundaries in your life. And I think in those three principles, me saying, God, I hand the situation to you. You're a just, you're a fair, you're a righteous God who will judge things all correctly. And I give it to you. So no longer am I living with this pain, this cancer of unforgiveness that's just eating me up. The enemy loves to throw it back in our face often.
Absolutely. And I see what you say about the different stages, of that, because when I was 20, I forgave a particular way.
Sure.
Then as I'm getting older, and again, I went through, it seems like almost every 10 years I go through a new phase. And it's just like, well, how am I going to forgive this way? But you've got to, so one of my stages was, well, I'm just moving away. I'm having nothing to do with anybody. I'll have to tell you, though, that was my happiest time of life. I had to tell you it was, because I wasn't constantly reminded of it. So what if let's say a woman or a man is in a bad marriage, and there's situations where one's a narcissist, if you want to throw that word out there, and they basically have a mind control over the other one. What are some safety measures? Because I'm going to tell you, especially when it comes to women, and I've met a bunch of them. There's a place in Anniston, Alabama called Second Chance Shelter. And of course, nobody knows where it is, which is a good thing, but it's a place for women to go and to get away and they're sheltered with their kids. So they're there for a period of time until they can get back on their feet again. If you want to give any money to any cause, that's a good one. It's called Second Chance Shelter, and it's for women, and it's in Anniston, Alabama. So again, if you're looking to get rid of some money, give it to them. But the thing is a lot of times they go back to it again.
Yeah. That's first of all, I'm so thankful that there's places out there for respite and rescue and shelter and covering. And this place in Alabama, I think, is a wonderful place where people can go find a safe place. That's really literally becomes a safe place, not just an emotional or spiritual or cultural space. It's really a safe space. So thank God for places like that. And I would say, unfortunately, for a long time, those of us who grew up in the church, we said, well, divorce is never. And we would say there's only one reason for divorce, and that was an adultery, right? But I think when there's a breaking of a vow, and the vow means if somebody's abusing, I'm not talking about having a bad day. Every marriage has its bad days and bad weeks and bad seasons that we got to fight through and pray through and communicate through. If you think you're going to get married and every day is going to be, a box of cherries, it ain't going to happen, right? So, I'm not talking about throwing in the towel just because you didn't like what somebody said. You learn to persevere, you learn to pray through. But I'm talking about when there's abuse. When there's an abuse there, and the Lord will lead you when those vows are broken, that I think God gives room there. But yeah, I think God doesn't want divorce. I mean, he always wants us to reconcile. He doesn't always wants us to find forgiveness and grace and healing and deliverance. But I think we got to be careful in that area when there's abuses. I'm talking about the physical and emotional and sexual. When those abuses are taking place, we want to really bring that before the Lord and say, was a vow broken as deep as the adultery, that one that breaks the marriage. But I would say that sometimes we go back because we're comfortable. We know it's wrong. We know it's bad. We don't want to go back, but it's what we know. We're familiar with the process, and moving forward can be too hard. When you've been beat down for so long, I think sometimes, you may leave X and you end up with Y going through the same junk because it's familiar. And we go, well, that's all I'll ever be. All I'll ever be is this piece of junk. This is kind of, and we do it consciously and subconsciously. And again, I'm no psychiatrist. These are just observations. But I would say that we go back to what's familiar. And it's hard to say I'm valuable. When you have been beaten down, when you have been pushed down, when you've been lied to, when you've been crushed in spirit and body, soul, and mind your whole life, for you to raise up your head and go, you know what, there's value here. It's hard because we can only, sometimes we don't believe it. So that's why I say the Word of God renews us. It's the renewing of our mind. It takes our heart of stone and makes it a heart of flesh. And in the promises of God, we learn to begin what? To love ourselves. And the Bible tells us to love our neighbors like we love ourselves. So we have to love ourselves so we can love our neighbors. But abuse and nightmares and sorrows and pains and neglect, that steals the love that God's given to us. Now we want to walk humbly before it, and we don't want to be arrogant about it. But God didn't. I'm not perfect, but I'm not junk. Let me just say that I'm far from perfect. I'll get my wife; she'll tell you I'm far from perfect, but far. But I'm not junk either. And for a long time, I thought I was something on the bottom of somebody's shoe. I would walk in a room and feel like the least valuable person there. I'd get involved in a situation and never thought I could bring anything of importance to that situation. And for a long time, those were the views I had of myself. So I carried myself in that way. So I found myself around broken and hurting relationships because I accepted it. But when God was the lifter of my head and the lover of my soul and raised me up, not to be arrogant about who I am, but know that I'm not junk. Guess what? I make a lot of mistakes, but not every second am I making a mistake. And not everything that runs through this crazy brain is always wrong. And maybe once in a while I might come up, even what do they say? Even a blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while. So, I
get them every once in a while.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know something that, okay, you and I were both raised in abusive homes. But the common thing, and I've thought about this a lot of times, I wanted my home to be total opposite I mean, because that was my plan. That's why I'm saying my siblings and I all went three different routes. And so, but mine was always, no, I never heard my parents say, I'm sorry. I never heard that. And so I always thought, I wonder if they had ever said, I'm sorry, could things have turned out differently in their marriage? So when Phil and I get married, because I'm telling you, I'm a handful, I'm pretty sure, because of the abusive. And so it was like I was saying sorry for nothing. I mean, I could drop a pencil and I would say, oh, I'm sorry, like that. So finally he said, stop. Why do you say I'm sorry all the time? And the electricity could go off because of a thunderstorm. And I'd go, oh, I'm sorry, honey, the electricity. And he'd say, are you God? Are you the reason? Like that? And so he just sat me down with, and by the way, 33 years with us.
Congratulations.
With me this long. But I finally learned that I'm blame of plenty. Believe me, I'm a normal human being. I get sometimes, but I'm not the blame of every single thing that happens. Right. I can't help it because there's a thunderstorm that comes and the electricity goes off.
That's right.
How can we, because there's still moments. Sure. I will look at Phil, like somebody pull out in front of him and when we're driving, and I'll go, oh, I'm sorry. And he'll go, you didn't do it. Why are you sorry?
Exactly. You know what? And I think, first of all, I'm glad we're talking about Saint Phil. That's what a good man. What a good man. I think those are some of the scars that I do the same thing. And for a long time, people would say, what are you always apologizing for? And I think it's just one of the tragedies or one of the symptoms of abuse. There's a lot of ways people have to deal with or navigate through their abuse. And some people fight it. I'll never put me in that place. And, they're coming out swinging emotionally, spiritually, physically. I'll never. And then there's others that just want to, retreat in themselves. And I'm sorry. I try to ignore. And there's different ways. And again, I'm no psychiatrist. This is just what I've seen.
This is life.
Yeah, this is life. And I think I probably carried a lot what you carried. I said, I'm sorry all the time. I know from me, one time I was in church and our church had the drum, tap, tap, tap. And there was the snare drum and, it was the 80s and the 90s and it was charismatic worship. And that snare drum was and every time the snare drum went off, I jumped. I didn't even know I was doing it. And then this gentleman in our church, who was an older gentleman, he was a veteran of World War II. So, he had some years on me. He was grandfather material. And he walked over to me and he said, young man, you're shell-shocked. And I said, I'm shell-shocked. I didn't know what that term meant. It wasn't one my generation used. And then he sat with me and he prayed with me. And he said, every time you hear that bang, I was literally physically, I had no control. My eyes would just tighten. And then my head would bob and my body would jerk. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I had to go to my prayer closet and I had to go talk to my counselors and friends and pastors and people who support me, because I realized that sound of that snare was always bringing me, because I was always waiting for the hit to come. I was waiting for the snap to come. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And in the same way, I think I was a lot like you. I'm sorry, because I'm just trying to escape the abuse. I'm trying to make sure if I'm sorry, maybe it won't happen again. If I could take it, maybe no one will get angry again. And that's not reality, right? Because the abuse wasn't caused by you and I. The abuse was caused by something that somebody was going through that was selfish and evil and wrong and bad. And whatever they were going through, they were spilling their abuse. So none of our behavior could have ever stopped the abuse. And I think sometimes as a child, that's we think, well, if I'm really good today, or if I do all my homework today, if I eat all my, my vegetables, if I go to bed, then it won't happen again. But then it happens again. And why? Because it's not about us. Abuse is about control, power. It's about, this sinful thing, and nothing we could do could ever stop what was happening. We were victims to it. And I think that's why we, maybe if I'm really, really good today, I won't get hurt today. If I'm really, really good, they won't yell today. If I'm really, really good, no one will fight today. And we always think that we could try to fix it, but it wasn't us. Amen.
Absolutely. And let's go into a commercial break. This is a good time. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Let's talk to young families about to get married and what they can do if one of them has been in an abusive relationship. It could be like an ex, or it could be the parents or whatever, or siblings or whatever. So let's talk about what they can do to maybe safeguard so they won't have to go through things Phil's had to go through the last 33 years.
St. Phil.
So we'll be right back in just a minute. Everybody hang in there. Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. Donna's Designs offers a line of handmade memorial, wedding, and keepsake jewelry that launched back in 1970. I'm a self-trained jewelry designer, and I will work closely with you to create unique designs you can love and treasure for years to come. Whether that be flowers that were used in a funeral arrangement or stones you found on the beach at a memorable trip, call me at 256-659-4319, and let's think of the possibilities.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. And even if it hurts, and yeah, I'm usually throwing darts at my own self because I want to be better than this. Something we were brought up, not identical homes growing up, but similar, very, very similar. And that's why I said, going into the last break, I've always said I'm sorry for everything when it was nothing I had anything to do with. And I think it was because I always wanted to hear my parents say I'm sorry to each other. Mm-hmm. So because I've thought about that. I'm finally 65 years old. So I'm like, I think that's what it was. I don't know if that's what it is, but anyway, okay. Young folks getting married. Okay. When you've been through an abusive relationship, whether it be a spouse, ex-spouse, or, parents or whatever, you're going to view life a little differently than the other person who is in a much, much better, reliable home environment. What can the spouse be prepared for who marries someone who's been in an abusive situation?
Well, what a great question, and how deep is that question? I think when anybody comes together in marriage, we bring our whole life with us. We bring the good, the bad, the junk, the peace, the bills, everything we bring into that marriage. And you're right. It starts with communication as best as we can. It starts with trust as much as we can. It starts with hope as much as we can. It starts with Jesus the best we can. And then I'll just speak for me. I didn't realize until I got married how many of those things would arise. I thought, okay, I put it under the blood. I said the prayer. But now I am in a marriage. I've become one with somebody. It's the deepest relationship I'll ever have. It's the only time I love my children, of course, but now I'm a spouse. I'm one. I'm married. We are in this covenant. And in early years of our marriage, things arose that I had no idea that what a touch would put a shiver through me, or a sound, or something that would arise that would bring me back to a trigger that would happen in my marriage, not because she was guilty of that, because I didn't know that it was going to happen, a sound. So we had to persevere. We had to pray through. We had to listen to one another. She heard me and I heard her. And to be honest with you, not because we were going through any bad times, we found some counseling. Not because our marriage was on the rocks or we thought we'd end it, or, she was looking to go left and I was looking to go right. Not at all. We just saw these things. So we started to kind of just get some counseling with people who've been through marriages. And then we realized our marriage wasn't that crazy, that every marriage has its ups and downs and left. And then we learned communication. My wife, I'm a talker. I bet you probably couldn't figure that out. I'm a talker. I've been called Marky the Motor Mouth most of my life. Yeah. My wife needs moments to process. So I want to talk and fix it. Hey, let's get this done. Okay, we had a problem. Let's fix it. Let's talk about it. Let's say I'm sorry. Let's pray. Let's get it over with.
Next. On to the next.
Exactly. My wife needs time to process. My wife grew up in a much more quieter home than I did. And for a long time, I thought her silence meant anger, because in an abusive home, that's what it meant for me. Absolutely. When my family was silent, something bad was going to happen.
I found myself saying to Phil, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And he would look at me like, "Nothing."
Yeah,
well, I thought because he's being quiet, there was something wrong.
Exactly. That's what I thought. My wife, she's a reader. She enjoys the silence. It's okay. She likes to process and think and create and I'm not that way. I'm going 100 miles an hour and I want to keep going. And I had to realize her silence doesn't mean she hates me. Her silence doesn't mean she's mad at me. And that my psyche and my upbringing was saying, well, she's quiet. She's got to be angry. She's quiet. She's got to be mad. What can I do to fix it? What can I do to fix it? And she would say, I love you. Leave me alone. I just want 15 minutes. That's it. I just want to drink my tea and read my book, and I love you. And those were the moments that we had to learn to navigate through. And we found some counseling. We found some, and I had to listen as much as I was the one that brought a lot of the brokenness in. No one ever brings in perfection. She brought her stuff. I brought my stuff. I had to listen to her and give her value as she listened to me. But yeah, I think she, as we talked about St. Phil, I think my wife, who is Jennifer, she could have that same hood too, because she's dealt with me for 22 years. So,
well, it's a good match. It really is, and God sends the right one.
Amen. Amen. I agree with that. Amen to that.
Okay, so we've got a young couple. Do you recommend Christian counseling before a couple gets married?
Oh yeah, I think there's always I'm a pastor. And I do weddings. I do ceremonies, and I always want to meet with the couple. It's funny because some people come, well, we just want you to marry us. Can you do the wedding on Saturday or Sunday or Friday or Saturday? And I say, well, I'd love to sit down and talk to you and get to know you a little bit and maybe bring some counseling. And again, I tell them I'm not a counselor. I'm a biblical counselor, but I'm not a psychological counselor or anything. But, I've been married 22 years, and I'd like to share with you some of my thoughts, reflections, examples, some of my mistakes when my big mouth has gotten in front of me. So you won't get into that. And we kind of look at that. And of course, studying and reading, are there triggers there? Are there things there that, hey, you guys want to pay attention to this? They'll tell you finances is one of the biggest stress in marriage, far more than infidelity. I'll tell you, finances break up more marriages than affairs. And, so where are you with your finances, and how are you communicating with that? And what plan do you have? Is it 50-50, 100-100? Are you paying this and they're paying that? Are you bringing this in? And people ask me my plan, and I said, here it is. I give it all to my wife. I think she could go to the bank and sign the check. I think if I went and signed my own check, they'd say I'm fraudulent. So, my wife, she gives me an allowance. It's just better that way.
My grandparents, who had both my grandparents had successful marriages, and my granddad on dad's side, I remember my grandmother passed away, and he didn't know how to write a check now, but he called her his secretary. And so what she would do is all the bills would come in, then she would just go ahead and write the checks out like that. And she would say, I'm Alden's secretary. And so that's what she did. And that's what he did. So that was their way, because I think she would probably have been the one better with the money than him anyway. Mm-hmm. Not that he would have abused it. It's just that she would gain control over every penny that came into the house. I mean, she would have been someone's wonderful bookkeeper in a business. It would have been great, but she was that type. And I think we just need to find out, like before someone gets married, maybe find out what the strengths are.
That's right.
So what do you say about that?
Oh,
because
definitely.
Some people are better at managing money than others.
You're right. I mean, we get married because we're in love. You want to be married. You want to be in love because that's what holds it together. But now we're in this union together, and we're in this household together. And who's going to vacuum, and who's cleaning the toilet, and who's doing dishes, and who's not. And these things fall upon everyone. It's not like, hey, just you or just me. What are the responsibilities? What are the expectations? It goes back to. Some people like to sleep with the window open. Some people like to sleep with the window closed. And I know if you get married and your wife wants the window open and you want it closed, man, there's going to be a conversation. Some people like a night light. Some people don't like a night light. Some people like it to be cool and dark, and some people like it warm and hot. So these are the little things. These are the small things that we have to navigate. And then the strengths. I mean, who's the builder? Who's the fixer? Who's the one that and those aren't bad things. That's why we come together. Two have become one, and we bring our gifts into the marriage. And we're thankful for our spouses because they make us better. I could tell you so many people have gotten in trouble in life in one way or another. And I'll ask them at the end of the day, they often say, I stopped listening. I stopped listening to my wife who said, slow down or knock it off or come back to earth or, and I stopped listening to my spouse who said, hey, you need to spend, and sometimes that voice around us who loves us, that they'll keep us humble. keep us humble. So it's good with that.
That's true. And I need that. I need that. So when I was a kid growing up, I would like to watch old movies. And I would like the ones where they had happy family lives. And I'll have to tell you one that really stuck. And Phil and I love with that. We are like old movie junkies, because as far as I'm concerned now, what's out there, most of it is trash. And it's like they're anti-family, you know, and that kind of thing. But I've always loved Doris Day. And I just thought she's so happy, so sunshine, so whatever. But anyway, one of my favorite movies that she was in is with Six You Get Egg Roll. And in there, so they had been married before, they're bringing their kids in, blah, 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 blah. So they're getting married. And it was a simple thing that always hung out with me. It always stuck with me. And that's, she said, she was about to get on the left side of the bed. And he went to the left side of the bed. And she said, "Oh, you sleep on the left side of the bed too?" And he said, "Yeah, what?" She said, "Well, I do too, but I'm okay." And then she jumps on the other side of the bed. And it was like she had to learn a new trait. And it's so simple, like you said just a few minutes ago. It's a simple little thing like that. Do you want the window up? Do you want the window down? Yes. Do you want a fan on? And I'll tell you something. I used to hate hearing noise in the bedroom. And so Phil likes to sleep with a fan running. It's just a thing. It helps him to sleep for some reason. We first got married. I'm like, why do we have to do this? I'm hearing that little. Now I absolutely love hearing the fan running at night, whether we're using it or not.
That's right. That's right. And those are the great things about marriages. You know, those are the wonderful little things that make us who we are. You know, my wife loves to sleep. We call it the tomb. She likes it dark, 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 and she likes it cold. And that's what I mean, we have blackout windows. I mean, I think she's even put some tapes to make sure no light is getting through. She likes that room to be dark. And, you know, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm still tripping over. I'm like, but you know, and I always had a nightlight. But you know what? I learned to sleep in the dark. And when I go to bed, I fall right to sleep because I'm in the tomb. That's what I tell her. I'm here. I fall right to sleep. But that's what she likes. And you know, there's other things I like. You know, and she puts up with my stuff. You know, when we're driving, I like to listen to talk radio. I don't like to listen to music. I don't know why. All the kids in the back are like, "Dad, this is so boring." And my wife's like, "Just put it on K-Love." But I don't know why. When I'm driving, I think I have to hear it keeps me stimulated. I'm probably arguing with the person in my head or something like that, but it keeps me stimulated. And that's what I like. I like to listen to talk. Now my kids all want to listen to the latest hits, and my wife wants to, but they put up with me. You know, they put up with me when I'm on a long trip. Oh, Dad.
That's what I like to say. He puts up with me. I mean, he really does. But there's so many things like I would have never thought I would have seen the day that he would like hot tea. Is it because we're in the South now? You're used to cold, sweet. I'm talking 2 cups of sugar, and I can't take that, even though I'm from the South. It's too sweet for me. but anyway, so he was always, when we first got married, it was you know, it was it was August, September, and it was pretty high here. So we're home from the honeymoon, and so I said, "I'm about to make some tea." And he said, "Okay, now put a lot of sugar in mine." And I'm like, "Okay." And so, but I like hot tea, even in the summertime.
Okay.
English background or something. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I love hot tea. And so I said, "Okay, do you want it hot or cold?" And he said, "I only want it cold." And I said, "Okay," because I like hot tea. Now I made his cold tea, but I wanted my hot tea. And he said, "How do you do that? It is so hot outside." And I said, "I don't know. I just like the way it feels. It's just cozy for me." And growing up, hot chocolate, hot tea, just it felt the coziness to me.
Amen.
I never thought I would see this day, but he likes hot tea now.
That's great.
So there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot, and it can be a wonderful thing. So there's nothing like on Friday night. That's our old movie night.
Okay.
We're home. We have a date night, and we have our hot tea and popcorn, and we watch an old movie.
I'm smiling while you tell me this story because any good New Englander, and that's what I am, anything up here in the Northeast, we drink iced coffee all year round. In the middle of iced coffee. You know, we drink it. It has ice in it. It's coffee, and we make it just like you would a hot coffee, cream, sugar, however you want it. 2 shots of this and 2 shots of that, and it's always ice. I mean, New Englanders are famous for their iced coffee all year round. And it's just kind of a New England thing. And I drink hot coffee, but boy, I do like my iced coffee no matter how cold it is outside. And it's just, but you're right. I think these little things, and when those little things become big things, when we're able to be applicable, we're speaking about old movies, and I had a senior pastor for a long time who said, we have to be Gumbies, talking about old cartoons. We have to be the Gumby who's super flexible.
Yeah,
sometimes, super flexible, that Gumby, that character of the 60s cartoon that could flex into anything, that green claymation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, obviously we don't want to deny who we are or what we have, but this is what love does. Love forgives a multitude of sins. And that's what we know, because that's what Christ tells us. And love is patient, and love is kind, and love is gentle. And these are the things that the Word tells us about love. And where we're called to be in this gift called marriage, remember, the Bible points to us in a marriage with Christ. He is the groom and we are the bride. And in this wonderful union, in this gift and image of this marriage, we too are in that. And God is loving and patient and kind with us. And we should be kind and patient with each other. Also learning to not hold it in. Sometimes I think, we can be passive and we can hold it all in, and then eventually one day it erupts. And that's not good either. I think we have to speak to one another and say, honey, I like this, or sweetheart, can we try this today? And I think anybody that's honest is going to give each other room to be each other. If you think you're going to get married to change one another, boy, that's the biggest lie, right? You can't change people. And if you think you're going to get married to be a better, a happier person, no, you bring your joy into the marriage. And in marriage, there's happiness. But, we lean on Jesus, and we lean on the Lord. We lean on the love of God that helps us be in a healthy marriage. If you came to an altar that I was praying at, oftentimes you'll hear me say, Lord, help us grow closer to you so we can grow closer to each other. And that's a prayer I say all the time. Lord, help me be closer to you so I can be the husband, the father, the friend, the pastor, the speaker, the neighbor. Help me grow closer to you, because in you is where I learn to let my selfishness go. In you is where I learn to let my pride go. In you is where I learn to listen. In you is where I learn to be just. So the closer I am to Christ, I hope the better I am to other people, including my spouse.
Let's talk a little bit to in-laws right now. So and I've always tried to be the best mother-in-law could be, because I want my son and my daughter-in-law to be together always. And I want to keep them together. And I don't want to do anything that she may detect that I'm trying to mess them up. I'm just not that way at all. So before they get married, I had never met her side of the family. Now, she's from Russia. She was brought here when she was 9 years old. And she's just if I could have picked a girl, it would have been her. I mean, that girl, my son, you got to pick her. I mean, she's the one. So I'm meeting them for the first time. They're giving a bridal shower, and I'm there, and they go around the room and giving advice. And I'm nervous because I'm like, I don't want to be the mean mother-in-law that gives like terrible advice. My daughter-in-law, I'm just not going to do that. And I was thinking while they were going around the room, I thought, oh, I know what I'm going to say. And so Larissa's sitting here, I'm here, and her mother is there. And so, of course, her mother spoke first, and, keep God in your family. It was wonderful. My son married into the perfect family. They're much better than we are. I mean, they're great people. So they get to me, and I just looked over at her and I said, do you think he's perfect? And she said, oh, he is. He is perfect. And she started talking about all that. And I went, he's not perfect. You need to think about that right now. He's not. He's a human being. He's going to do things that will annoy you. He was raised by himself. He was an only child. He might be selfish. And so she's thought about that. And because most people won't let go. Their kid is perfect no matter what. No matter how abusive they can be, whatever. And I wanted her to see that he's not perfect. And he was raised by himself. She had a bunch of brothers and sisters.
Sure.
So she had to learn how to share. And he's not selfish, but I just wanted her to know that there could be an instant in their life that he might be selfish. And it's because, and I'm raising the best I could, but
sure you did.
Could be, he could have those moments where he could be. And I said, sweetie, he's not perfect. And he's not.
Well,
And so, what do in-laws need to do to make marriages to bring that, like, she's my daughter as far as I'm concerned. I mean, she's my daughter. I love her that much.
of course.
What do you want
Well,
to
you
say?
know, I only have the perspective from one way. I don't have none of my children are married. So my perspective of in-laws is I have in-laws. I am not an in-law yet. I would imagine that's a strong possibility in the next 10 years. My son and my daughter, who are just on the, leaving teens now, I could see that both of them in the next 10 years, if not sooner, could have a spouse. And so, yeah, thinking about it from what it would look like as me being the in-law is a different perspective that I've never had before. But I know that as a son-in-law, my in-laws have embraced me and tried to love me and tried to accept me, and they let my wife and I have our marriage. That's the best thing. They let us. Yeah, of course, if there was ever an emergency or if there was ever anything that needed super correction, they'd be there. But I think that they've let us have our marriage. They let us have our up and down. I'm sure there's things that we've done that they thought were crazy. Why did you do it that way? And we would have never done it that way. And I didn't raise you that way, kind of thing. But, for our marriage, it worked. And I think that was important, that they gave us our space. They were always they were a shoulder and an ear. And they gave advice, of course. And, I got the eye if my father-in-law thought I was doing something dumb. I got the, watch it out, boy, kind of eye. I got that. But they always gave us the room to have our marriage. And when we needed them, they were right there for us. And we needed them through the years. They came in with advice. They came in with support. They paid a couple bills when things were tight, when we were starting off, and they kind of looked at me and said, "Okay, buddy." But they were there for us when we needed them. I know that my first church I took as a pastor, my mother-in-law came and was my worship leader, and she was our worship leader for several years, and just served that church, and and just loved on us. And so I think that was important, that they gave us our room, and I hope that I would do the same. I hope that of course, we want the best for our children. We want them to have good and healthy and spouses that love them and could care for them, and they're in a healthy relationship with Christ all through it and about it. That's what we long for our children. But our kids are going to live their lives, and I would like to think that this theory that I have, I'll practice it. I'd like to think I'm going to practice what I preach.
I think you will. I think you will be a wonderful, wonderful father-in-law. I really do.
Thank you.
And that's what it's all about, because a lot of people, and I don't even like to say in-law. To me, that's a bad thing, because at the root of a lot of my parents' problems were in-laws, and that can be an issue. So I call Larissa my daughter, or my daughter in love.
Of course.
It's a thing. It's a hang up I have, but
yeah,
I just do that. I think that's extremely important. So what do you say to, because sometimes there can just be siblings that just, I don't know, they don't get along with the in-laws or whatever. And the root of a lot of it, I think, is probably jealousy.
Well, I think that we always have to try to find a way to walk in peace. I mean, love thy neighbor. There has to be, now again, we're human, and there's never all the time. We're not always going to agree on everything. I just told my church the other day, somebody said, "Pastor, do you agree?" I said, "You know what? I don't agree with my wife on everything, and I love this person more than anything. We're never going to agree on, but where do we make the mountains? What hills are we going to die on?" Sometimes we just got to let, your house, you do your thing and I do my thing. And, sometimes you got to get to that place where I'm not going to control you. You're not going to control me. But if there's hills to die on, if there's things to say, this is evil and wrong and bad. And, not everybody in our extended family shares our faith. Not everybody in our extended families says, "Oh, there's a pastor in our family." Sometimes I get the, "Hey, what do you really do for a job? You only work once a week, right?" That's, not everybody agrees or supports or believes like we believe in our extended family. But we try to have a peace, extend the olive branch as much as we can. There are places where my wife and I have had set some boundaries for our home, but they're not ones that we shout from the rooftop and say, oh, if you do, then we will. No, it's just ones we live, and we live it everywhere. So we try always to have peace. Some of those people that we probably see don't see eye to eye with, we see maybe once or twice a year. And I think drinking a nice coffee, everybody can kind of get through an afternoon. Hopefully, but that's okay. And as I get older and get wiser, the young man in me was wanted to fight for all my truths, and the older man in me says, you know what, it is what it is. Grace abounds.
I've learned to love that phrase. I've learned to love it is what it is. I can't do anything about it.
That's right. Grace abounds.
It does. A couple of minutes left in this segment. What would you like to tell the folks before you go, and how can they find your books?
Well, again, I just want to tell people today, you're not alone. We've talked a lot about trauma today. And again, one of the first casualties of trauma is isolation. That you're the only one that's gone through the abuse, the sorrow, the addiction, the pain. And as I said earlier, you're not alone. And the lie of that trauma wants to say no one cares. There's communities out there that are people that want to support you. They're not perfect people. They don't walk on water. They don't have all the answers. But there are people that said, I endured. I learned the way out. I was able to overcome. I gave up the addiction. I quit this. I was able to find hope. I was able to live in grace. And I believe it all starts and ends at the cross of Jesus Christ. So I tell people they're not alone. There's hope out there. And again, if you want to find me about my 2 books, Forgiving the Nightmare and Letters to the Weary, the best place is to go to our website at forgivingthenightmare.com, forgivingthenightmare.com.
Now, you're pastor of a church. Do you guys have a Facebook page where people can actually?
We do, yeah. Calvary Community Church in Dudley, Massachusetts. Calvary Community Church in Dudley, Massachusetts. I like Dudley Do Right. We're really going back to those cartoons.
I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how Dudley Do in Dudley, Mass. We're a town in Massachusetts right on the border of Connecticut and Mass. So we're more central Mass. We're not out there by the Cape Cod. We're more central Mass. A lot of apple farms near us, a lot of nice quaint New England towns, as your mind would see. The trees change colors and windy roads and everything, picket fences and all that you would see. But Dudley, Massachusetts, right on the border of Connecticut, and you can go to Calvary Community Church, Dudley, Mass.
And it's where you're actually colder than we are today.
We are. I think you're colder than us today. You're colder. I think it said 16 for us today, and you were 14. So you can keep that cold weather.
No, you can have it. We're going to send it right back to you. Thank you so much for being with us on the show today. It's always such a pleasure. And thank you guys so much for watching. Makes my day. Absolutely. You can find us now on Eastern time at 2 p.m. And we definitely appreciate that opportunity. And also continue sending emails. You don't know what that does for me. It makes my day. Donna@donnasedge.com. That's Donna@donnasedge.com. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
God bless you. Thanks.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462.